Well, welcome into the Retire Smart Maryland YouTube page. I have my co-founder here of Elite Income Advisors, Ozzie. I'm Prashant Sabapathi. And Oz, today I think we have to spend some time talking about long-term care and some of the risks of longevity. I mean, we know today retirees' number one concern is running out of money, right? Cool. And so I think the biggest thing there is it's nice to want to live till 90 or 95 years old, but talk a little bit to us about why that places such a big stress on your retirement portfolio if you haven't planned properly.
Let's talk about some of the expenses that we seeing around the Maryland specifically. Yeah. Like we see the cost that runs around $6,000 to $12,000. So how do we plan to pay for this? We have the money coming in for our expenses from our pension and Social Security. And let's say we have $10,000 income coming in. What happens if we need long-term care expenses to be paid by other sources? And that can erode our savings so easily because the people are stay there for 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's a great point. So you're saying if someone needs, say, $6,000 or $8,000, let's say $8,000 a month, they need just to live the most fulfilling life possible. And now they go into a long-term care facility. That's going to be nursing home, assisted living, home health care, whatever it is. That's a great point you're bringing up. If we need an additional $6,000 or $8,000 or $10,000 a month, that creates a huge problem, right?
Yes.
Now, we're in a situation today where we have so many people that have these 401ks and IRAs that they're withdrawing from. Talk a little bit about what the problem is with having those accounts, especially when we need to draw income out of them.
So the biggest problem is going to be this. So when we take our incomes, we calculated all of our expenses and we look at what's our gross income needs to be. And let's say that our gross income is going to be $8,000. That's great. When we go to the nursing care facility, if we do need another $6,000, we need to take that money out from our retirement accounts, which in most cases, we did not pay the taxes yet. Then we have to pay the taxes. Then guess what? Now we were taking out $8,000, now we're taking out $14,000. Then our gross income is going to go higher. Our taxes are going to go higher. Then next year or after that, Medicare premiums are going to go higher.
That's a lot to take it. It's almost like it creates a domino effect, right?
Yes.
So you're taking money out. You need $10,000 a month for long-term care. You actually have to take $14,000 or $15,000 a month just to account for the taxes, which now is going to increase your tax bracket, increase your Medicare. That's a great point you bring up. So I'm sure people are watching this saying, okay, but what do I do? How do I even deal with it, right? So there's some ways out there. Let's talk about long-term care insurance for a second, because there's kind of the old and the new, right? There's a way of doing things which people don't really do anymore. And that used to be, you would buy a long-term care policy from an insurance company, but every year they could increase your premiums, or it was use or lose. You paid all these premiums for a benefit that you may have never realized if you just passed away without actually using the long-term care. And so, as you can imagine, people don't like that anymore. I don't love the idea of having use or lose. I don't love the idea of not knowing what my premiums are going to be every year. So there's a new type of policy out there becoming much more popular. What would you say, last decade or so?
Well, last decade,
yeah.
It's called a life long-term care hybrid policy. So how it works is I do have one, so I can give you an example from what I own, that I have $1 million policy. God forbid if something happens to me, then I pass away, my family is going to receive that $1 million tax-free. And down the road, I'm at least 75, 80 years old, need a long-term care. If I go to a facility or the home nursing care, that policy is going to provide me up to $20,000 tax-free income to pay for that expenses. And like you said before, it's not a use or lose proposition that I go to a long-term care facility, I stay there for 2 years, or I spend let's say $500,000, I pass away. There is still $500,000 benefit can go to my family tax-free. So all the premiums that I paid is still going to be get back to me.
It doesn't go to waste, essentially.
It's not going to be
right?
waste. That is correct.
Okay, so you have $1 million, you use $500,000 to pay for your own long-term care. there's still $500,000 left in the policy. You're saying that goes to your beneficiary tax-free.
That's correct.
That's great. Okay, so then what about this idea of the premiums going up? Because remember, in the old policies, the premiums could go up overnight, and that's a huge issue. Because if I don't know what the premiums are going to be, I can never plan for how I'm going to pay for it. So what about these policies? How do the premiums work on them?
So the old policies, you know, it was going up every year, and in the state of Maryland, actually, they can raise up to 15% a year in your long-term care policy. But the new policies are, you take the policy, you know how much going to pay, and that's going to be the amount you're going to pay, you know, as long as you own the policy, and they never ever going to change that premium on you because they guarantee you what the premium is going to be.
So if you know, and I think that's so important, because if you know what the premium is always going to be, you can plan for how you're always going to pay for it, right? Sometimes it's as simple, folks, as just creating an income plan where you know what your income is going to look like every year for the rest of your life. And if you have a fixed long-term care solution that can never go up in premium, then you can always coordinate having enough income to pay for something like that. That sounds like a pretty good idea to me. But can you talk a little bit, because anytime it comes to insurance, I always think of like, what if I'm unhealthy? What if I'm not able to get it? Is what you're talking about a solution that I have to kind of be underwritten for?
Yes, and again, like when you look at that, it may not be the good solution for everyone, but if you think that there is some kind of a health problem or whatsoever, you know, we can look up some other options, but you have to go through the underwriting process to see what your health looks like. And sometimes some people think that, oh, I have high blood pressure, I have cholesterol or this, and they think it will be a really bad negative effect, but that's not really work. So the companies have underwriters, they take a look at your all history and they decide what the rate it's going to be for you.
So these solutions, typically, you got to be able to be healthy enough to get them, which oftentimes is not really a huge deal. And then you got to have the money to be able to pay for them. So they're definitely not the right thing for every single person out there. But I think it makes a heck of a lot of sense to just explore, because at the end of the day, if the worst case scenario is, hey, it's just not the right thing for me, you have the ability to walk away from the whole thing. That's what I love about these things. So folks, if you are concerned about your ability to pay for a long-term care nursing event in retirement, then give us a call. It's 443-274-3002. That's all for now from today's episode of Retire Smart Maryland YouTube.